Many people live their lives whole and healthy. They go to school, date, get a job, even have a family. However, others don't have the luxury or have it taken away in the blink of an eye. 340,000 people are waiting for a central organ transplant. Every 10 minutes, another person is added to the list. These people's lives are interrupted, put on a standstill as they wait for a vital organ donation. 21 people die every day waiting for an organ. The situation seems bleak, but hope can come from an organ donor. One organ donor can save up to 8 lives through various transplants. While many lives could be saved, donors are in high demand. The amounts of transplants needed far exceeds the amount that can be given. Most don't realize how donating an organ could change someone's life. Enter Elliott, a young man's life who was changed because of organ donation.
I was diagnosed with hepatoblastoma. I was 11 years old when I was diagnosed with this disease. My treatment options were to do a 5-month chemotherapy program. It was very hard and very intense, and it was hard because I had to be away from my friends and family. I needed a liver transplant. I do not know the organ donor today. Maybe someday I might. I would want to know about them because they're the family that gave me life again. I had to wait 3 months for an organ donation, but other families had to wait a few months to years. My life now is full of fun and blessings, and I get to hang out with my friends and family. If I was ever given the chance to donate my organ to save another person, I think I would, because I know the feeling of someone else giving another person another chance and another chance at life.
What was it like with Elliott being sick?
So I think for any family, when you have someone who is sick, it becomes really challenging because you're afraid for the person who is sick, and you're also trying to keep everything else in your family life going. So when Elliott was sick, our whole family had to kind of stop doing the things we normally would do and adjust to his schedule. And that could mean a schedule for his treatments for cancer, or it could mean because he got a temperature, or because he was otherwise sick and had to go to the hospital. So at any given point, we could plan to be home for the day, but then he might actually end up in the hospital for 5 to 7 or 10 additional days because of a fever or an infection. So that could be really scary, but it's also just generally kind of upsetting for a family.
How long did you have to wait for the organ?
So before Elliott could become eligible for organ listing, he had to complete a treatment protocol for the type of cancer he has. So it's called hepatoblastoma, and you have to complete 4 rounds of chemotherapy with 4 different drugs, and you have to be free of cancer, or no evidence of cancer is what they call it. So we waited for 6 months for him to complete that treatment, and on the day he was listed, it was within almost hours that he became eligible. But leading up to that, it took us 6 months to get to the point of even being ready to be listed. The reason he was so quickly given an organ was because he was a child and he had a disease that would have otherwise caused him to die very quickly.
What effect did it have on you and your family?
So, a family member being listed for transplant, particularly Aleah's case, meant that someone else would have a loss in their family because he was only eligible for a donor an entire liver, and so we knew that someone else's family would lose a family member, and so we felt guilty, but we felt really anxious about Elliott having a chance at life. And so you always think about and hope and pray that that family is recovering and that they take comfort from it. And we send letters and pictures, and Elliott makes artwork for them to try to help them know how much we appreciate and how grateful we are for the gift of life that they gave to him.
Do you know who donated the organ?
So in Elliott's case, he was actually transplanted twice because he coded or was close to death after he had his first transplant, and so he ended up having 2 donor families or donors. And we know that one was an adult, a smaller adult, and we know that the person was from the upper Midwest. And his second donor was someone who was in middle school, about his same age, and it was a young man. And we have since we've exchanged letter with them, and they told us about their son, and he was 12 years old, and he actually had an asthma attack and passed away from that. So he was very close to Elliott's size, and it was a really, really good match for Elliott, and he's never had any complications from the liver. So we're very thankful, and we actually have offered if they would ever like to meet with us, if Elliott was comfortable and their family was comfortable, we would do that. But we don't know exactly where they live or anything like that, because we want to protect one another's privacy.
How does one become a donor?
The easiest way to become a donor is when you go in to get your driver's license or your driver's license renewal. You can check the box on the form, and then it will be printed on your driver's license. That way, if you're ever in an accident or your family members need to make decisions for you because of some other kind of event that causes you to be close to death, then everyone knows that. You could also tell your doctor, and you could also put it on places like your Facebook account or other social media, because that is viewed as a legitimate way for you to express your desire to be an organ and tissue donor.
How does the organ transplant process work?
The organ transplant process is actually set out in federal law. So Congress passed a law and the President signed it, allowing organ, tissue, and eye donations to be shared in the United States. We have a regional life source that is the procurement and placement organization. So when Elliott was ready to be listed for transplant, we agreed to have his medical records supplied to them so that they could ensure that the organ would be the appropriate match for him.
If you could donate an organ, would you?
Of course. I would consider being a living donor. So if I had a family member or a friend who needed a kidney, for example, I would of course consider that and try to be a match for them. I also have it on my driver's license so that I will be an organ, tissue, and eye donor when I die.
How is life now?
Life is awesome. Our family thinks about every day as a gift, and we even count the number of days that Elliott has been able to be with us since he was diagnosed with cancer and since he had his transplant. And I would have to say that Elliott lives every day to its fullest. Don't you think, Elliott? Yes, you do.
By signing up to be an organ donor, you can make a difference. All it takes is a little check mark on your driver's license, register with the organ donor registry, or signing a donor card. Even if you lose your life, you could save someone else's.